Hello, everyone. I'm Vance Ballard with the National Sports Media Association. Joining me today is Wichita State beat writer for the Wichita Eagle and first-time winner of the Kansas Sportswriter of the Year award, Taylor Eldridge. Taylor, thank you for joining me. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm honored.
Happy to have you. First of all, congratulations on your award. Well deserved.
Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome to get the phone call, and yeah, I was just happy to be nominated. With a couple other great names in Kansas, two guys I really respect a lot. So I was just happy just to have my name mentioned in the same sentence as them.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start you off with a pretty easy one here. So, when about in your life was it childhood or later on in life? When did you know that sports journalism was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was probably pretty early in high school. I remember shadowing the old K-State beat reporter for the Wichita Eagle. He let me come up to a K-State basketball game. This was back when they were, really bad and like hardly anyone was going to the games. But, I was a huge basketball fan, a huge K-State fan, and I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever that you got to go to sporting events and you got paid to just sit there and write about sports, think about sports, talk about sports. So after that, I was pretty sold that that was what I wanted to do because, I was just a huge sports nut. Growing up as a kid, my dad would just sit there and, I was a big like sports card collector. So like that helped me like memorize names and stats and stuff like that, looking on the back of the cards. So that's what kind of got me into it. And from then on, I was just like, this is such a cool job that, somebody will pay you to, cover and write about basketball. So I was pretty sold pretty early on. I think that was like sophomore year of high school.
Well, there you go. Um, so you mentioned your dad there and growing up with the cards and learning stats. Were there any other inspirations? Also, I know you mentioned the beat writer from K-State when you were in high school, but aside from those two, were there any other inspirations that kind of pushed you towards sports journalism?
Yeah, I think yeah, Jeff Parsons, he's the one that I shadowed back in the day. And then just like yeah, I consider myself pretty lucky. I was like at the very tail end of like the glory days of newspapers. And obviously I didn't grow up in in that in the room like I wish I would have. I caught the very tail end of it. But man, it was pretty special. And I would say that, that old Wichita Eagle sports staff, Kirk Siminoff was the editor there. Joanna Chadwick was the high school sports writer. Dwayne Frazier, Tony Adame, Paul Solentrop. Those were kind of like the legends here in Wichita, at least in my eyes. When I first got here, Josh Wood, Tom Seals, Tom Shine, kind of guys behind the scenes that, I really looked up to. I thought those guys were rock stars. So, yeah, just getting that first taste when I started working at the Eagle as a high school stringer, picking up phone calls, talking to high school football coaches, writing the box scores, taking phone calls on Friday nights. I just love that. To be in the newsroom, to see the newspaper printed on Friday night at midnight, that was just like really, really cool. So yeah, I consider like that those the sports people when I first started working at the Eagle. I think I looked up to all of them.
That's awesome. That's very cool. And you touched on it a little bit there in your answer. Talk some more about your journey to the Eagle, to where you are now as the Wichita State beat writer.
Yeah, so I started working there my senior year of high school. Like I said, I kind of got hooked on newspaper writing. I thought that was the job for me early on in high school, and the Eagle wouldn't let you write for the newspaper until you graduated high school. So I got a job on the sports desk. Like I said, picking up phone calls every Friday night for high school football, taking down stats, doing the box scores, doing the weekly leaders. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And then as soon as I graduated, I was kind of considering, where I wanted to go to college. And the Eagle said, "Hey, if you stick around Wichita, you can start writing for us. So I was like, I thought that was a pretty good deal. So I kind of picked that over the college experience. So I just stayed home at Wichita State and started writing for the Eagle right away as a correspondent. Just did a lot of high school sports. That's kind of what I grew up doing. Did that for like 10 years. And then I got hired in 2016 as the full-time high school sports writer, and that was awesome. That was kind of like a dream come true to get a write full time for the Wichita Eagle, seeing the Wichita Eagle under my byline instead of Eagle correspondent. That was like a really big deal to me because, like I said, I kind of caught the tail end of those glory days of being in the newsroom, seeing the magic of newspapers, and so that meant a lot to me to be able to carry on that tradition and in 2016, and I did that for a year. And then it just so happened that the Wichita State job opened up 1 year after that, so 2017, and it just corresponded with the Shockers moving to the American Athletic Conference. So I kind of covered a new era of WSU sports. So I took that job in the summer 2017 before that first season. So and that's kind of been my journey to how I've done it now for the last 8 years. So um, and now as the newsroom has changed, jobs have unfortunately shrunk. I have to kind of cover all sports in Wichita, and you know I love it. I don't consider it extra work because, like I said, I'm such a sports nut, and I care so much about, the Wichita Eagle, kind of like that reputation because they had, such a good cast of writers, and they were, you know, uh, they're so good back in the day when we had a full staff. So, but now, I am the, kind of the one man show here in Wichita, from high school sports to like what we were just talking about before recording, doing figure skating,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Obviously Shocker sports I'm on top of, but whatever it is in Wichita sports, I'm just working on a story right now about a PGA golfer from Wichita just had his career best finish on the tour. So yeah, I mean anything Wichita sports, I get to write about it. So I'm pretty lucky in that regard. And but yeah, that's kind of been my journey to where I've been able to get to now.
Very cool. So if it's Wichita, Taylor's tapped in.
Yeah.
Know that we're good there. So back to the award again. Congratulations. This is your first Sports Writer of the Year award. Can you kind of put it into words for me what it means to have your work, your writing, your craft recognized and appreciated as from an award that's given by your peers?
Yeah, it means a lot because I don't think this is why like any of us are in it. We're in it to tell stories and help communities, serve communities, and you know highlight other people. Highlight, especially when I was doing high school sports. Like that's what always meant the most to us was highlighting kids. Some of their best memories in their lives are going to be winning championships, scoring the game winning goal, and you get to record that, document that, and kind of pump them up and make them feel like superstars. So it is kind of strange being on the other end of it, being in the spotlight and accepting an award. But yeah, like I said, just very humbling, uh, honored. The like I said, the two writers that were other finalists. Those are two of the best writers in the state. I have a lot of um, just respect and yeah, it's just awesome. I know Brett Maycock. I've been back in the high school sports days. I used to. He was in Topeka. I was in Wichita. We'd always cover state track and kind of see it was like kind of a competition, like who could write the longest with the notes because of state track. That's you get 40, 50 state champions that last day, and it's just like who can go the longest on their notes. And he was he's a legend. I don't think he needs any awards to kind of cement his status. I think everyone in Kansas, if you read high school sports, Maycock's name, and so it's just it's a lot of it's a big honor to receive something like this, and it's just really cool.
Very much so. I agree. And from you're not the first person like I've heard this from. It seems that this is a very tight knit industry as well, and it's everyone is happy to see everyone else succeed and encourage them to do better in their work and continue to work harder and move forward, which is always good to see in an industry. Now, no, you kind of mentioned you came in at the end of the glory days of the newsroom there earlier, and also, unfortunately, you kind of came in at the end of the glory days of Wichita Shocker basketball as well. So, kind of describe to me what it's been like since you've got been there with the conference change, transition into new teams, new rivalries forming, and how the fan base and how it's been being the beat writer for this transition and maybe trying to get back to the old glory days.
Yeah, it's I kind of joke with people, before I took the job, WSU had been to the NCAA tournament 7 straight years and advanced in the NCAA tournament. They'd always won in March Madness, not only getting there but also advancing. And since I've taken that job, they have zero NCAA tournament wins, in the 8 years since, and it's not looking like they're going to be back in March Madness this year either. So yeah, it's definitely an adjustment. When I first took the job, very first year, they were top 10 for the majority of that season. They had, NBA guys on their roster, Landry Shamet, Austin Reeves, and just a loaded team. And every game felt like such a big event. And it was just like, you just can't, it's just so different writing about games that feel like events compared to now. Wichita State plays tonight and they're having to lose. They're 1-6 in conference. It's the bottom of the. They're in the bottom of the standings, and it's just not as big of a deal as it used to be. And it's sad. It's a bummer because I think sports writers. I don't think anybody's ever rooting for their team, but you are rooting for good stories. And the majority of the time, good stories happen on winning teams when the team is doing well. So in that regard, it is kind of a bummer that Shocker basketball really hasn't been what it was. Back in those glory days, like you said, they've gone through coaches. This is the third coach, in my tenure, and they've had controversy with Greg Marshall, how he ended his tenure, and and they just haven't been the same since. So yeah, I mean, I would just say it's just kind of a bummer because I'm a big basketball fan. I'm a big like X and O guy, and that stuff just isn't as interesting to readers, to fans, when the team isn't doing well. When the Shockers are winning, people are just eat that stuff up and they think it's the most interesting thing ever. But when you cover an average to a below average college basketball team, not as many people are into the analytics, into the X's and O's. They don't really care as much about that kind of stuff. So that kind of is a bummer for me, being kind of a film nerd like that. But yeah, we'll see. If they can get back to it. I think Wichita is a different place when Shocker basketball is on top. When the Shockers are winning at a high level. The town is just different. The city is different, so it kind of elevates everyone. That passion is pretty unmatched, and yeah, I mean, I think it's a different time. It's definitely just so much different from when I first started covering them to where it is now. The arena is half empty almost every night, and there just isn't the same reader interest. But you still try to find the good stories and still try to generate interest other ways compared to when I first took over.
Right. Gotcha. Speaking of that, you hit there kind of in that answer a little bit on big events and Wichita in general. And speaking towards that, you guys, Wichita is a host location for the 2025 NCAA tournament this year. So, what has been or is going to be your process in preparing for that? What's the vibe around that coming in? Is there excitement towards it? Or you guys doing extra at the Eagle? What does that look like from a
Yeah, we
reporter
actually
standpoint?
just hopped. Yeah, we actually just hopped off a meeting right before I recorded this of brainstorming different story ideas. The news sides, thinking of different stories that they can do. Sports side, obviously you're going to try to do kind of get to know stuff. Here are the teams that are coming. Here are the top players to watch. Here are the upsets to watch. But yeah, Wichita fans are fired up. I think it goes back to what I said. When Shocker basketball is good, everybody's in a basketball crazed mood. I still think that's the case. I still think Wichita is still a good basketball community that's going to support it. No matter who comes. But obviously, Wichita officials they're rooting for KU to kind of get their act together and stay in that top four seed line because if they are a 3 or a 4, they're probably coming to Wichita, and if they fall outside the top four, that's going to be a huge. Last time Wichita hosted, KU was the top seed, and they
Mhm.
came here, and it was they made a ton of money. A ton of KU fans came, so that's obviously what Wichita is rooting for, just to have a local team here.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're talking about is how to cover that if KU comes, how to cover it if they don't come. Different story ideas. A big thing is like when outsiders come, they're always looking for recommendations on where to go, things to do, places to eat. So you kind of have to think outside the box and think of like what outsiders are gonna think to Google when they come to Wichita. So yeah, it'll be all hands on deck when the NCAA tournament comes. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that, like I said, I don't think the Shockers will be playing in the postseason this year, barring a miracle turnaround. So I'll probably be focused on that for that weekend in March.
That's exciting stuff and busy but exciting times nonetheless. You'll be digging into new avenues, finding new stories that aren't necessarily focused on Wichita. Speaking to that stories, in your time with the Eagle, whether it be as the Wichita writer or a correspondent, whichever that may be, is there any story or feature project you've done with them that kind of pops off and jumps off the page right out of memory at you that you may think is I guess favorite is the best word for it?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many good stories over the years. That's tough to kind of put me on the spot. Man, I think there's been some good Wichita State basketball stories that I've really liked on kind of backgrounds of players. Craig Porter was he's the last NBA player that's come through the program, and he's with the Cleveland Cavs right now, and he had a really powerful story about where he grew up. Grew up in a poor neighborhood, had just a really tough upbringing. Could have gone down the wrong path many, many times, and telling his story for the first time was really special. That kind of stands out in my mind because, I kind of built that trust with him. He was there for 3 years at WSU, kind of steadily built up that trust in him and his family, his mom, who raised him, kind of earned their trust, and they kind of felt, they kind of told their story, opened up to me, and told their story. So that one kind of stands out. And there was one last year, Dalen Original, kind of similar thing. Grew up in a really tough upbringing. Was raised by his grandmother, and that was a really emotional one. Kind of same thing. Could have gone down the wrong path, and his grandmother just like would not let him, falter, and just kept him going to school, kept his head on straight, kept him playing basketball, and he ended up, having a pretty solid college career, got a degree, he's playing professional basketball right now. So those are my favorite kind of stories to tell. I'm a huge basketball fan, huge X and O nerd. But the best stories are always the people behind the players. That those are my favorite stories to tell and read about and to write is finding out how they got to where they are, and finding out more about the person and the people who they are, behind the jersey, I guess.
Exactly. So it's more than just a number and a box score. It's about
Yeah.
getting to know, for your purposes as a college writer, the kid that you're, like you said, was wearing the jersey as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Taylor, this has been awesome, man. So as we wrap things up, one last question here. What piece of advice, maybe something you've been given throughout your career or that you've picked up in your time as a sports writer, would you give to students or young professionals like myself who are looking to break into the sports media industry in some capacity?
Yeah, I think the way that you improve is for if you're in the newspaper, writing world is just reading a ton of, magazines, blogs, stories online, whatever you can, get your hands on, just pick your favorite topic and just read a ton about it. And that's how I got better. You're always looking to improve, and I think all writers kind of take things from here and there. Everyone has their own unique voice, and I think we're all, still looking to, develop that voice. But yeah, just like taking things from here and there and seeing how other writers do it. That's what my advice would be: just to read as much as you can, write as much as you can. Get as many reps in as you possibly can. It's easier now than ever with blogs, and you can make your own website, whatever it is. But that's how I've gotten better, and how I try to continue to get better is just reading my favorite authors, reading other beat reporters. Even if I don't even care about the team, just seeing how other people do go about their business. That's how I've got better. You pick up on ideas, story ideas, how they use phrases. Uh, yeah, that's kind of my advice. Is just read a lot, write a lot, and listen to Jeff Pearlman's podcast. He's got the best podcast for writers, in my opinion. I've learned a ton from him as well. So that's if you're into podcasts, listen to Jeff Pearlman's Sling and Yang.
Well, there you have it. Like I said, Taylor, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much again for taking some time to join us today. Congratulations again on your well-deserved award. Best of luck to you and the Shockers as the season continues, and best of luck to you as you go on in your career.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.